how are we doing tonight, guys? Hey, my name's John Simons. I'm the men's pastor here at Rolling Hills. And tonight, if you've not caught on to this theme, that we're leaning into the idea of walking through fire. That's because, guys, listen, we know that as you walk through these doors, man, life has a crushing weight to it, doesn't it? You're going to go through seasons, I promise you, of setbacks, suffering, and trials. That's life. But here's the thing is, what do we do when we're walking through it? When you find yourself in that season, how do you look up to God and ask him to be your refuge? That's what we're going to be talking here tonight with these guys. But before we do, hey, listen, this is not a one-man show at all. If anything, for the furthest thing from that. I want to go ahead. Can we give it up for our barbecue guys who are here at 4 a.m.? Yeah. How about Jordan St. Cyr and all the production team? Amen. Hey, and all the volunteers that greeted you and made this whole thing happen. Awesome. Now, guys, I want to introduce you to a few of my friends up here. These are each leaders in our men's ministry, and we're crafting this culture of how do we invite men in their brokenness to offer it to the Lord, but at the same time, how do we come alongside you as the church? And so this is my friend Patrick Holcomb here. He leads in our men's leadership team. Jacob Helton here, who he is actually starting to lead an initiative, a group that we're going to talk about literally launching out of tonight. And then there's Jason Cockrell, who literally, by the way, guys, he helped put on the barbecue and everything, so give him an extra round of applause. All right. But he is also a men's table leader on Wednesday nights when you join our men's studies. And so, guys, let's make this a little bit more personal and just, peel it back a layer. And for each of us, we've been through seasons that we walked through the fire. But Patrick, let's start with you. What does that mean for your life?
Yeah, thanks, John. I think of two different events of walking through the fire. The first one comes to mind is kneeling beside my bed with my wife. She just had our fifth miscarriage. Mm-hmm. And not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to make the pain go away. But knowing the right answer seemed to be to pray. And being the good husband, the good leader that I am, I said, you pray first, and I'll follow. And I remember my wife said, I don't want to talk to him. You talk to him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, that wasn't really what I wanted to hear. I was hoping I could kind of follow suit and kind of play off of what she said. I remember in that moment, to me, it felt like I was in just an empty cave that was dark, that was quiet, that no matter what I said or did, the walls of that cave just soaked up all that noise. And I thought to myself, what can I stand on right now? What can I say to my wife? What can I say to God right now? It feels like I am in the bottom. But I got to stand on something that's true, something that I know will never change. And I knelt there with my wife, and all I could say was, God, you're good. And I just kept saying that over and over again. And I said, that's just what we have to stand on in this moment, in this moment of brokenness. I got to stand on that truth. And in that season, my wife and I had to walk through and come to grips with that in that moment, in that season, God had for us just to have 2 kids. And that was a difficult time to go through. That was a difficult thing to kind of reconcile in our minds and our hearts as we felt like that's not what God had for us ultimately. The second through the fire happened on March 27th, 2023. It was a Monday morning. I was at work. I was in our staff meeting. My wife called. I didn't pick up. She calls me back, and I'm like, man, this isn't normal. So I pick up the second time, and she tells me over the phone there's an active shooting at our kids' school that the 2 boys go to across town. I remember just being in disbelief. I remember running out of the room, out of the meeting room, going to my truck, speeding across town, not knowing what was happening, what was going on. You're trying to text while you're on your phone, tell people what's going on. You're trying to look up on the internet what's happening, but it's all happening so quick. There's no news of what's going on. And in that moment, it felt similar to kneeling beside the bed after that 5th miscarriage. And I called my wife, and I told her, because she also was heading to school, I said, no matter what we find there, we got to remind ourselves, God is still good. regardless of the outcome of these circumstances. I remember parking as close as I could to get to the school. It felt like every police agency in Metro Nashville and Franklin and Brentwood was heading in that same direction. And I remember trying to figure out where in the world are the kids, where have they put the boys? Are they alive? What's going on? And I was told that they sent a bunch of the kids to Fire Station 20, which is an adjacent fire station next to the school. It's just down the hill. And I remember just running to that fire station, not knowing what we were going to find there. And I will say in that moment, God did a really sweet and kind thing. The doors of that fire station, they have glass across the bottom section, and they're about 4 feet tall where those glass windows are. And the first two faces that I saw on the other side of that glass were our two boys. And their hands were just pressed up against that glass trying to reach out to me. And the reality that day was our worst nightmare did not come true. Jesus protected our boys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, man. We appreciate you, Patrick. Jacob, when we think of Through the Fire for you, man, how does that hit home?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. That's a crazy story. My name is Jacob, for those of you that don't know me. Grew up in the area. My wife and I, Gracie Hope, got married 8 years ago, and we've got 4 kiddos, ages 5 and under, so our house is a circus. And pretty rowdy, but we have a lot of fun, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Through the fire, I think of 2 metaphorical meanings. I think of fire being destructive and damaging. I think of it being something that can't be managed alone. I also think of fire as like a refining, purifying process as well. I'm not totally sure which fire you guys are in tonight, you individually. I'm not sure why you're here tonight or what brought you here, but God's not scared to meet you in that fire, whichever one it is. For me, several years ago, my wife and I had a lot of chaos going on. A lot of it was self-inflicted, and honestly, a lot of it was normal things that at the moment felt super trivial. We had just bought a house that we were gutting and remodeling. We were expecting our 3rd kid in 3 years. COVID was going on, so nobody knew if life was on or off. It was just kind of like everything was going on. And work was growing, which as a business owner is a great thing. Also has its own sets of implications and stressors as well. So in that season, I wasn't talking to healthy, strong men. I was kind of just floating and drifting. A lot of what I was doing was my own idea of helping myself. And so because I wasn't getting need fulfillment of emotionally being connected or honestly even processing emotions, I found ways to find stimulation for myself. So pornography and alcohol crushed me. I was introduced to pornography at a very young age and always had a struggle with it. But the season that I was in, it was even more rampant. Alcohol became just a daily need for me to function for several years. So much to the point that my need for stimulation just became a fully encompassing thing. So mornings started as caffeine, being over caffeinated. It turned to energy drinks later in the day. It turned to nicotine of some sort, and then it turned to alcohol, pornography, sleeping meds to sleep to give my soul some rest. And that was a kind of a crazy thing. That was all while on prescription medications trying to fix my heart. I'm not totally sure if you're there tonight. I'm not sure where you fall in that category, but it's an awful and a hard place to be. The night that my wife and I call our turning point was a night that I came home. I had a glazed look in my eyes, and she could tell that something was up. All of this was being hidden from my wife for several years, and when I walked into the door, she asked me, "Hey, is there anything you want to talk to me about?" And I just said, "No." I did what I was normally doing. I doubled down. I continued to gaslight her and just said, "No, I'm good. I think everything's going good." And to be honest, I really thought I was probably doing okay. Like, as crazy as that sounds when I say it, it sounds ridiculous. But I was going crazy just where I was. And that night, when I doubled down on it, the Lord prompted me with, of all things, a kid's movie quote from a movie called We Bought a Zoo. And the quote is, "Sometimes all it takes is 20 seconds of courage, 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery, and I promise you something great will come of it. And that night I chose 20 seconds of bravery to be honest and start to tell the truth. And little did I know, my wife was also praying a prayer on the way there, on my way home that particular night, that I would be honest this time because this was a reoccurring question, and that also she could accept whatever it was that I was bringing up.
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob. Jason, why don't you bring us home with this question?
So, first and foremost, I just want to thank Patrick and Jacob, for sharing their stories and just the honesty and the vulnerability around that. It's not easy, and I know that your stories are going to impact somebody here tonight, so thanks.
Yeah.
When I think about through the fire, I think about refinement, when something's been stripped down to its most basic elements, kind of to its core. And there's two moments that really stand out for me. The first was a couple of years back when I went through Celebrate Recovery. And, when you go through the 12-step process, all the things that you've been hiding behind are just stripped away from you. And, all of your sin and your brokenness gets exposed. And that's not an easy thing to walk through. The vulnerability of it. I think the other piece of it for me was probably the hardest was realizing the people that I had hurt and then having to acknowledge that, my choices and how it impacted those around me. The second time that really stands out for me was March 12th of 2020. We run a catering business, so we're kind of in the business of gatherings and celebrations. And that morning, we were actually getting ready to go out and do some community service over in East Nashville because they had the tornadoes on March 9th. And as my team kind of gathered, we were sitting there, and I started getting emails and phone calls, just felt like one after another. And business just started canceling. And over the course of the next 48 hours, we lost 80% of our business and millions of dollars. And I had always really prided myself on the ability to work hard, work fast, juggle all the balls, spin all the plates. And I realized, like in that moment, there was nothing of my own strength that was going to get me through this next season, right? And I had no choice but to just lean on God. And I remember sitting in the office, and it was perfectly still. There's no food going out of the kitchen. Nobody's there because nobody could come to work. And I just fell on my knees, and I just asked for God for provision, that he would come and just provide for my family.
Yeah.
And for his grace in that moment to help me get through the next couple of seasons.
Yeah. Thank you, each of you. It takes a lot of courage to do this, so thank you. Guys, as they're telling, the fires in our life, some of them can be self-inflicted, and we have to bear the shame of that and work through that, and as we're going to talk about, and then sometimes life just happens, and these fires are coming your way whether you want to or not. And so, guys, I would love to, what did God do in these seasons, though? I mean, from being angry with them to being scared to being caught in cycles of toxic shame and embarrassment. Guys, how did this go for you? Jason, let's start with you about how did God meet you in it, but then what would you share with these guys tonight as now being past that season?
Yeah, I think, to summarize really what I learned and what I hope, you can take away from it, I can't do any better than Scripture does. So in 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10, it says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses and insults, in hardships and persecutions and difficulties. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong." And I think it's, the best part and the part that I kind of want to stop at, but it's, my grace is sufficient for you. And that really is true. God's grace is all that we need. And he shows up in that moment in a way that only he can, with exactly what we need in that moment. And then that second part where it talks about, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses. That's not something that we as men do well. And I'm thankful for the peace that I have that now I don't have to hide my weaknesses. I can expose my brokenness. And hopefully God will use that brokenness to impact those around me, because the reality is I'm standing in a room of broken people. And also, with the next generation, I serve with middle school boys on Sunday morning, man, and I want those guys to know that, like, hey, I've been through the same things that you're gonna go through, and let me help you through that. And then I think that last part about, in hardships and persecutions, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we're all gonna go through hard things. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. And I have the image of Moses, like when the Israelites were at war with the Amalekites. When Moses had his arms in the air, the Israelites were winning the battle, right? And when his arms came down, they began to lose. And he was weak and he was getting tired. And in that moment, Aaron and Hur come up on either side of him and they hold his arms up, right? And the Israelites were victorious in their battle. And I just pray for each one of you right now that you'll just find that group of godly men that are going to do that for you. Who's going to stand up, stand by your side, hold your arms up so you can be victorious in the battle that you no doubt will go through at one time.
Jason, I'm so grateful for you, man, and the way you lead your table on Wednesday nights, the way you pour into students here in middle school. And I know you're going to say, man, that it's all for the glory of the Lord. It's all because of his grace, and it is. But you're a man of wisdom and grace, and that witnesses to all the generations beneath you, and I'm grateful for you, man. I'm really grateful for you. Jacob, how does this resonate with you?
Yeah, for me, the two things that come to mind are rigorous honesty and radical dependency on Jesus. Those are the two things that have changed the trajectory of my life, and one of them requires me stepping in to accept the gift that the Lord's giving me. I knew the Lord my whole life, but I truly wasn't walking in step with that. So my story goes on. I attended a lot of 12-step meetings, a lot of recovery groups. I sat with a lot of really godly men, a lot of mentors, picked up the phone every day for the last 3 years, pouring my heart out and expressing the things that honestly a mentor taught me, it's the things we don't talk about that kill us. That was true for me big time. A statistic I just read, 7% of churches in America have a group for men that struggle with pornography. 7%. So that means 93% of churches don't have that, and that seems like a real problem. And it's on my heart to be in an environment and help create an atmosphere for myself and for the other men that I walk with to meet regularly. And having worked alongside John and Kathy, they've opened up a slot for us Monday evenings at 7 o'clock to run basically a recovery meeting. Integrity and Recovery is what it's going to be called. And it's an opportunity to come in and lead with weakness, to nosedive into your problems, to be honest, to not be judged. And it's not a place for men to fix men. It's a place for men to learn to talk. I didn't set out to lie in my story. I didn't know how to tell the truth in a lot of ways. And I think my heart would be to help pass that along to the next guy.
Jacob, thank you. And he's referring to what's going to be called Integrity and Recovery Group that's starting on Monday nights. And you'll hear about it in the email that you get at 9 o'clock. But Jacob, I could not be just you sharing your story tonight as another guy in his 30s who we don't have it all together. And both of us, you in particular, trying to step forward and saying, I'm going to take my story, and wear it as a badge of honor of how do I help other guys. And man, I'm just so proud of you, man. I'm grateful for your friendship. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories of how Jesus walked with us after the days, the weeks, the months, the years, after those miscarriages and the school shooting. There's been good days and bad days. Since that time, the fifth miscarriage, my wife and I have had 2 more kids. We just had our 4th little girl November 1st of this past year, Annie. Even in that, though, when my wife was 8 weeks pregnant with Annie, we thought she had a miscarriage. We ended up going to the doctor to an ultrasound, expecting to see an empty womb. If anything, in that moment, if you guys have gone through miscarriages with your wife, we were praying that it was a completely empty womb, that it was a full miscarriage in that regard. And instead of seeing that, we saw a perfectly healthy baby on this ultrasound machine. I'm in construction. I'm a contractor. I'm not a doctor. I remember looking at that screen thinking, man, what in the world is this? That does not look at all like what I expected. But I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to say anything out of place. But that was pretty incredible to see what we thought was going to be death, and then that turned into what was ultimately life. I'll tell you this, even after having 5 miscarriages, that was short-lived, I was terrible at the 6th miscarriage. I didn't support my wife well. I didn't love her well in that, and I ultimately left her feeling alone in it. Another just kind of good and bad day. Recently, my 10-year-old son, Benny, who was at the shooting, he sat through his first fire drill in his school. And just put a little context around that. When the shooter came in that Monday morning, the smoke from her gunshots set those fire alarms off. One of the initial shots did it, and then literally, I think it's almost 200 rounds later, it continued to set the fire alarm off. The kids thought that it was a routine fire drill. They lined up like kids do. There were line leaders. There were teachers encouraging the kids to go out into the hallway to exit the building before they realized it was an active shooter, and then ultimately seek shelter back in their rooms. Those fire alarms sounded throughout the entire ordeal of the shooting until that suspect was neutralized and until Metro PD removed all the kids from the building, and then they turned that fire alarm off. So needless to say, fire drills are a big deal at my house. And I remember sitting with Benny up in his room the night before there was supposed to be a fire drill, and knowing that we needed to encourage Benny to sit through that fire drill, that we needed him to kind of lean in on that, and just, Benny, we feel like this would be a good thing for you to be able to do. And him praying to God, and Benny saying, I remember Benny saying, God, I'm scared, I'm afraid. Benny saying, God, I trust you. God, I know you know better than I do. Will you just let me know what you want me to do? The next day Benny went to school. He stayed in his classroom throughout the fire drill. And was so proud of him for doing that, for overcoming that fear, for praying the prayer that he did. I wish as a 10-year-old boy, I was willing to talk that frankly with God, to tell him, I'm scared, I'm afraid, but I know you know better than I do, and I trust you in that. Just tell me what you want me to do. That to me was so powerful as an adult sitting there with my son, hearing him say that. In the bad and the good, I know that Christ is going to wade through it with me. His word tells us he will never leave us. He will never forsake us. What God taught me in all this was, regardless of my circumstances, he is still good. He is still the gentle, kind shepherd that holds his sheep close to his heart. I learned that the trauma, the wounds of life, if you bury it, you will bury it alive. You got to put it out. You got to bring it out into the light. And the way that I did that, how I was able to go through that, was time with God, prayer, time in his word, time with my wife, bringing the heartache, the trauma out into the light with my wife, seeking forgiveness for how I didn't love her well in those miscarriages, walking through all the pain, all the hurt after that shooting with my wife. You know what it didn't do? It didn't destroy us. It made us stronger. It strengthened our marriage. Yeah. There was also a few trusted godly men that walked with me in that season, that cried with me during that season, that sat around campfires with me during that season, that encouraged me, that leaned in on what I was going through. Here's the reality. God made us for community with others. The reality is, too, he made us relational beings in his image. First to be in a relationship with him, and then with other people around us. So what if I had to pass on to you guys? I would say this: the abundant life is the surrendered life. Surrender your life to Christ first. Be open and honest with him. Pray the type of prayer that Benny did. that little 10-year-old boy. Tell God you're afraid. Tell him you're alone. You feel lonely. Tell him you feel scared. He can handle whatever we take to him. And then find a group of men that are like-minded, that are going to pray with you. They're going to celebrate the good times with you. Yeah. They're going to be with you in the bad times, right? They're going to sit around with you and hear what's going on in your life and want to know what's going on in your life. You do that, and I promise you, your life will be changed.
Yeah, that's a good word. That is a good word, Patrick. And I'm not trying to make you emotional when I say this, but one, I love you, man, and two, when you think about Benny's response, it's because he has a dad who's modeling it to him, and that he's a dad who loves him and is sitting with him, and he's seeing that love of yours and realizing God is just as big. Love you, man. Let's give these guys a round of applause. So, it's a long applause, guys. Hey, if you take away anything, guys, the truth is we're going to walk through fire, self-inflicted, some that come our way. But here's the thing, like they're saying, you're going to see them walking out here at church, stop them, plug in with you. These guys, they're leading our men's ministry. Connect with them. And if you're walking alone through whatever you're going through, we want you in a men's group. We, as a church, we want to walk and sit in that pain with you. Go out to the groups table out here and have a conversation. That's all that needs to happen, is start a conversation tonight. That's all you have to do. So, guys, I'm grateful for you. And as Matt said, and, hey, can we give a round of applause for Matt? He's doing an amazing job hosting this thing. But as Matt said, you have an email that's going to come with all the next steps in the survey. Guys, get plugged in. We're begging you to. Can I pray for you guys? Father, I thank you for these men, Lord, in my life, but also in the life of this church. Lord, that they come forward in courage and vulnerability and in brokenness. Lord, I pray for the men in this room that this stirs in their heart, Lord, that the Spirit presses upon them that they can't go alone, that that's not even how they were designed. Lord, that as they walked in, Lord, that they are learning to unburden themselves, to throw it all on you, Lord, because that's what we're called to do. And Lord, let us as a church help them do that. Lord, I'm grateful for all that you're going to do in and through this work. In your son's name, amen. Thanks, gentlemen.